Sometimes, you don't need a big reason to run away from everything. At the beginning of last year, my life was a mess. Work overload, chronic insomnia, and thoughts that were getting more chaotic every day. I felt like my brain was never quiet, constantly running around in my head like a broken machine. So I made a quick decision: go. Not just a vacation. I needed to disappear for a while. I found an ad on a small online forum. Cabin for rent. Private. Remote. No signal. Perfect for isolation. Without thinking, I booked a whole week. The cabin is located in the mountains of Montana, far from town, even further from any settlement. The only access, a dirt road that will make your car's suspension suffer. No Wi-Fi, no cell reception. And no neighbors within 3 miles. When I arrived, the air was cool and a thin mist blanketed the pine trees. The cabin wasn't old, but it was clearly rarely used. The paint on the outside of the wood was starting to fade. The windows were narrow and the frames were dusty. But there was something peaceful about the place. Inside, it's pretty neat. There's a fireplace, a small kitchen, 1 bedroom. The floors are wooden, and they creak every time you walk. It's that old log house smell, a mix of dust, dirt, and time standing still. I feel comfortable. For the first time in months, maybe. My first night was peaceful. I sat on the couch, reading a book, listening to the wind blowing through the window. No notifications, no cars passing by. Quiet. Comfortable. Silent. But the second night, something changed. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound. Footsteps. Outside the window. Slow footsteps. Steady. Like someone, or something, was walking across the front porch of the cabin. My breath was held. I didn't dare open the curtains. I didn't dare turn on the lights. I just sat there quietly, waiting for the sound to go away. And it finally stopped. But there was no sound of a door, no sound of a twig breaking. Just silence. The next morning, I looked for traces. Curious, but also half hoping I wouldn't find anything. But on the soft ground near the bedroom window, I saw footprints. Large. Bigger than anyone I've ever known. And the direction? Not away from the cabin, but facing the window. Like something was standing there, watching me sleep. The third night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, the sound rang. Heavy footsteps outside the window. The soft creaking of the wooden floorboards on the porch. I told myself, it's just an animal. A bear, a deer, or whatever lives in a forest like this. Night had passed into afternoon. I tried to check around the cabin. Behind the bushes, behind the outdoor kitchen, I found something in a rope. Tangled, a little dirty, and looked like it had been recently abandoned. And on the nearest tree trunk, there was a long scratch. Like it had been scratched or scribbled with a sharp metal. I was starting to panic. But I still tried to think logically. Maybe this was the work of a prankster. Or the remains of previous visitors' activities? But why? Did the rope look like it had been left in a hurry? And why were the scratches fresh? As the sun began to set again, I felt uneasy. I locked all the doors. I propped up the windows with tables. I lit the fireplace, but it didn't feel warm at all. There was a strange pressure in the room. It was like the air in the cabin was afraid. and around 1:50 a.m., the sound came back. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, creaking on the porch floor. But this time, it stopped right in front of the door. I held my breath. I hugged the small kitchen knife. All the lights were off. Only the dim light from the fireplace burned weakly in the corner of the room. Three knocks. Not hard, but enough to make my bones cold. I stood up slowly, walked towards the door, then put my ear to the wood. No sound. Until I heard something again. Not from outside, but from inside the house. From the direction of the kitchen. Steps. Slow. Heavy. Like two different things were moving at once. One outside, one inside. I ran straight to my room, locked myself in, and sat in the corner, holding back my panic. I didn't sleep that night, and when the morning light started to come in through the window, I came out of my room. The cabin looked normal, but on the dining table there was a cup. A cup I didn't use, but it was wet. There was still coffee left in it, and on the table, etched with a sharp point, Day 4. I was on the verge of going crazy. Not sleeping for 2 nights, my body was starting to shake. But what was worse, my mind was starting to lose the ability to distinguish between reality and hallucinations. Sometimes I would hear voices from downstairs, even though this cabin didn't have a downstairs. I even pulled up all the floorboards, hoping it was just mice or the sound of old wood. But nothing. Just empty space, and the sounds were still there. At 6 p.m., I decided to leave. Enough. I gathered all my stuff, threw it in the car, and started the engine. But the engine wouldn't start. I did it again. 5 times. 6 times. Finally, I opened the hood. The battery cable was cut. Clean and sharp. Not an animal. This was the work of someone, or something that knew what it was doing. I went back inside the cabin, locked everything, and sat on the floor holding a kitchen knife. The air was getting colder. The electricity came on for a while, then suddenly went out completely. And as night fell, the sound came back. But this time it wasn't just footsteps. It wasn't whispers. A low, cracked laugh, like the sound of someone who has lost their mind. And it's not just coming from outside. It's inside. I can hear footsteps on the roof, in the kitchen, in the empty bedroom. But every time I go there, there's no one there. I start recording everything. Sounds, images, anything. But my phone screen starts to glitch. The video is distorted. Weird shapes. Silhouettes moving quickly. Like the camera is picking up something, but my eyes aren't. 2:43 a.m. There was a loud crash from the kitchen. Chairs fell. Plates shattered. And then, a sound I'll never forget. Basement? This cabin doesn't have a basement. But the sound is coming from under the floor. I grab a flashlight. I walk slowly into the main room, then to the corner where I hear the sound the loudest. There was a carpet. I pulled the carpet away, and beneath it, a wooden floor with tiny lines that formed a secret cover. I don't know what moved me at that moment. Curiosity or desperation. I slowly opened the door. A wooden staircase descends into a dark room, a room that was never mentioned in the lease, that I haven't seen since day one. The temperature down there is freezing, and the smell, like dried blood mixed with damp earth. I descend 3 steps and stop short. My flashlight catches something. Paintings. On the walls. Not ordinary paintings, but pictures of people. Faces full of fear. Eyes stabbed across the face. Mouths open as if screaming silently. And one painting in the middle, unfinished. The face is blurred, but wearing a black jacket like the one I'm wearing. My flashlight began to dim. Suddenly, I heard a sound from behind me. Footsteps upstairs. The basement door was closing. I ran upstairs, but it was too late. It was locked. I pushed, I kicked, I screamed, but no one heard me. The only sound was a whisper from behind me.